We've got to be concerned about students' psychological and emotional well-being prior to really helping them to achieve their greatest academic successes. I can tell you what keeps us up at night, at least I'm talking about the superintendent and our principals and our school board, is student and staff and parent safety. I'm the superintendent of schools here in Tooele County School District. We have roughly 17,000 students. We have 26 schools.
Under the operations department, I supervise and oversee building construction, building maintenance, facilities, transportation, food service, and about anything that moves.
I'm the Director of Counseling and Social Services for Tooele County School District. My background is I have my master's degree in counseling and administration, and I have a background also in business.
My name is Andy Peterson. I'm the principal at Rose Springs Elementary in Tooele County School District. When we would have even just a lockout, which is a little bit different from a lockdown. A lockout is if there's something happening outside of the school building in the neighborhood and the police are suggesting that we do a lockout. The kids are still in the school doing what they do, but nobody's going outside. We're not letting anybody in. In previous schools I've been at, even in this school, even though all the doors were locked, we would always have to have somebody go around and check all the doors. And inevitably, it seemed like almost every time there was one or two doors that for whatever reason, whether it was because kids were out at recess and coming back in, it hadn't latched. Oftentimes a door might still be open, and that's why we were in the practice of always going around and checking.
I remember being in San Antonio for NSBA, which is the National School Boards Association. And there was a huge vendor area and it had 3 aisles of school safety programs, and there was everything from stop the bleed kits to baton and safety kind of glass breaking items and fight back items that would be located in classrooms, to training, to online safety programs that would monitor social media, etc. So I'm looking at all these different programs and adding it up and saying, if I added all this, which I would like to keep my kids safe, I don't think I could afford it. So where am I going to get the greatest return of investment? I didn't know. A few months after that, I get back here and the governor's education advisor gave me a phone call and said, hey, superintendent, the governor had just toured a local business called One Door. And I have to admit, I was a little bit skeptical, thinking, how are doors? I've seen fire doors, and I understand the secure vestibule idea and routing kids into the office and single entry kinds of things, but how are doors going to help me with my real concern, which is how to keep kids safe in the event of an emergency or an intruder?
I've been to New York, and I've been in the schools where it's kind of like at the airport where you have to go and you go through the scanners to get into the schools. I've been the one who's gone through the scanning to get into the schools. I know what that feels like. My concern was it would have some of that to it, that it would have more of that prison-like feel that it would bring into the schools. That was probably my biggest concern, was that it would be closing things in and make it much less inviting. And to me, that would have increased problems that we were having in the schools. But when we went to One Doors and we saw the examples that they showed us, and then when they actually put it in the school, my expectations were exceeded, because it was even better than what I expected. It was more inviting, more open, less visible. It was fantastic.
When you go through teacher's school, they teach you about ranging your room for academic success. My mindset has changed to safety.
I remember being riveted to Sandy Hook, all of the footage on that, and being afraid to send my first grader to school at the time.
Every time you hear on the news about another shooting in a school, I do panic.
Before it was just a feeling of, I don't know what I would do.
You know, doors are not locked, the school's just open for the front doors for just people to come right in. So it's scary.
And for you personally, in your position, why is that so important?
Well, because I'm the first person as they see as they come right in the door.
You want the parents to know that you're doing everything for their kids to keep them safe.
What can I do to keep my kids safe? Because I do feel like when the kids are here at school, I feel like I am their frontline defense. Even though I'm not the bravest person and I am pretty passive, But if it comes to protecting my kids, I got to do what I got to do.
I would hug them at the gates of the school and, you know, say goodbye and then think like, is that the last time you're going to say goodbye to your kid? You know, as you say goodbye to them as they leave for school. And so there's just a comforting, like, calm. As a parent, I haven't had that since we've had these doors. And that there are 15, and so, you know, that's a lot of doors to stop somebody, you know. And the drills there, my kids tell me that they do the drills quite often, and so they're prepared. And I like that they probably won't know if it's real or if it's a drill because they do the drills quite often, and I feel safe knowing that they're coming to a school with protection and the bad guys aren't going to be able to get in here.
These doors are strong. I mean, I put my shoulder into one because I didn't believe it. I saw some video of guys with sledgehammers and crowbars and chairs trying to break through these barriers, and it just didn't happen. So I thought, all right, we're durable, we're almost maintenance free, and then the aesthetics really look nice. We began to talk about what we would do, and I will tell you that within 40 days from the time where I went to One Door, they had completed the retrofit at Rose Springs Elementary.
Initially, they came in, Big D Construction was one helping with the retrofitting of the school, and they started knocking out walls, they started doing all this stuff, and we were thinking, there's no way. We only had a month until school started, and we're thinking there's no way this is going to be done. What are these doors going to be like? What are they going to look like? And then once the doors started getting installed and we started seeing what they were looking like, I was impressed because I didn't know what to expect. And so seeing what they were doing, how they're dual layered doors, the type of construction they were, how they are pulled across automatically, it was pretty impressive to me, and I really thought, this is something that I think is going to be really good. And then I was completely sold once I saw them in action.
15 doors, I am absolutely amazed that we was able to accomplish that, make it happen, get our school clean, get our floors waxed, get things back and ready for school to open up in a very short period of time. Great cooperation with the One Door, Tooele School District, Hunt Electric coming on board, Utah Yamas Controls, was able to get everything done that we needed to get the school up and running and have it secure for day one of school starting.
Because anytime there's a school shooting, we find that the angst of our students and the depression and the anxiety just increases because of fear. We're in a growing community, so our schools are full. And there's a lot of students in them. They're jostling in the hallways, they bump, and just by that proximity, it increases tensions and things like that. So when One Doors came into the schools and actually when we went and saw what they had to offer, and then when it was put into place here in Rose Springs, to me the biggest thing was that we could take out those middle partitions, the big brick partitions, so that it opened the spaces up so there wasn't a place for students to hide. It made it so there was more proximity for the students so they weren't bumping into each other, and it made it a more relaxed, open, friendly atmosphere. It wasn't as much of a school type clinical setting as it made it just more inviting.
I was very pleased to learn that on new construction, I'm telling you it's a no-brainer because these fire guard security doors work to protect students and schools from fire. And of course they meet all code requirements, so they're fire doors first, but they're also security doors that could be implemented and integrated with your fire protection system and your video surveillance and entry control, etc.
That first week of school, we talked to the kids during morning announcements, things like that. I would talk to them and let them know kind of what we had done and that we had these new doors. I told them beforehand, hey, we're going to try these doors out so you can see them in action, you can see what they do. So that first week of school, what we did was we pulled all the students into the halls, just right outside the classes, and said, hey, I want you to stand in the halls so you can see what's happening. And we had them all come in the halls and deployed all the doors throughout the whole school. They all saw it. They were all, oh, that's cool. That's, you know, they all thought it was cool. And I think that kind of helped to where there's no kids that I know of that are afraid of the doors. They know they're here for security. They know they're here to keep them safe. And that's kind of what we've talked to the students about is, this is just for safety. This is to keep you safe, to keep us all safe here at the school.
I think the excitement in the air was the biggest difference. It was, let me show you these doors and let's watch them and how cool is this? And When I saw him for the first time, it was, man, that's fast.
We had this first meeting, it was our back to school night, and the reception was fantastic. Parents were excited, they were clapping, cheering. They were really excited about, it's something that's on a lot of people's minds.
And it was interesting in that discussion as we were talking about what we had learned in the superintendent's listening sessions, that the mental health was huge, but also within those listening sessions, our staff, they're wanting more of the wand door and that hardening component also, and they're seeing the benefit that happened within those, and the law enforcement that have participated, they agreed with that.
The sheriff came, Sheriff Wimmer was here as well, and there was a few sheriff's deputies. What we did was we had them come in, and they said they brought a person with them who was going to act as if they were an actual school shooter. And it wasn't, didn't have guns or anything like that or anything with students. He just had a camera with him, and he just was walking around with the camera so that the police could see how far into the building this person could get. The police also set it up. I felt like they kind of tried to trick us a little bit, because one of the officers propped open our front door just barely so we couldn't tell that it wasn't locked. And so when their person came in, they just opened the door and walked right in, and we were talking with the officers, and they walked in, and they got to about the library area, and that's when the sheriff said, okay, the first shots just went off, the shooter's in the building, what are you going to do? So we were kind of surprised by that, because we didn't know that they were starting it right then. So we immediately called a lockdown, deployed. The shooter was able to get to the library, so he got past the first set of doors, but he was not able to get past the second set of doors. And all the officers were pretty impressed with that.
It's where they had just did the same drill at another school, and they weren't able to lock it down as quickly. In fact, nowhere near as quickly. So knowing that, and word gets out on those types of drills, that increases the desire for having that replicated in our other schools.
And again, that was separate from what we typically do, because oftentimes they're going to have to be stopped at the front door, and we're going to be asking them if we don't know who it is. My secretaries do a great job of, who is this, what's going on? So we were pretty happy with that, with the result of that drill.
Instead of going around and making sure all our exterior doors were locked, at the flip of one toggle switch, the secretary could simply lock down the perimeter of the school. There are two other zones. One is kind of the office admin area, and then the second one is between our academic hallways, our corridors. It acts as a compartmentalization and buffer within the school so that an intruder doesn't have access to classrooms and different hallways.
The thing that I love most is that 5 to 6 seconds. Close 6 seconds, and I feel like I'm safe.
I'm talking about keeping kids safe and keeping staff safe and reassuring them and creating a climate where they don't have to worry about safety and security, and they can actually focus on academics.
It really does add to a more mentally healthy environment.
I hate the times that we live in, but I do know that we can just keep trying to stay a step ahead. And I think that the doors are that next step ahead.